My name is Allie Foster. I'm part of the July 2014 Teach Now cohort, and I'm doing a presentation on the laws and policies that affect teaching. I've chosen to examine 3 different policies and laws that affect teaching. The first is the Civil Rights Act of 1964. The second is the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, and I've also selected Title I from that act to specifically focus on because I will be student teaching in a Title I school. And the third is Common Core. All 3 of these acts and policies are very extensive, so I've narrowed down just the basics of what they are, pros and cons, and how they can affect my teaching. The Civil Rights Act of 1964 was probably one of the greatest acts that was ever passed for our country. It outlawed discrimination and segregation in schools, the workplace, and facilities that serve the general public. It enacted laws that forbade discrimination against race, color, religion, sex, or national origin. No more segregation and no more discrimination. The act was signed into law by President Lyndon B. Johnson on July 2, 1964.
Congress passes the most sweeping civil rights bill ever to be written into the law, and thus reaffirms the conception of equality for all men that began with Lincoln and the Civil War 100 years ago.
I'm about to sign into law the Civil Rights Act of 1964. We believe that all men are entitled to the blessings of liberty. Yet millions are being deprived of those blessings, not because of their own failures, but because of the color of their skin. But it cannot continue. Our Constitution, foundation of our republic, forbids it. The principles of our freedom forbid it. Morality forbids it. And the law I will sign tonight forbids it.
The Civil Rights Act of 1964 was the most sweeping civil rights legislation since Reconstruction. It outlawed discrimination on the basis of race, religion, national origin, or gender, and banned the practice of segregation in schools, public places, and employment.
When this act was signed into law in 1964, it was a great starting point to fight discrimination. But even 50 years later, we still see racism, we still see sexism, we still see discrimination happening every single day. And it's our job as teachers to continue this progress forward and fight discrimination. The Civil Rights Act of 1964 affects my day-to-day life in a positive way. Children are integrated with one another now in the classrooms, which is wonderful. The workplace is a much more fair and equal environment. But unfortunately, I'll be student teaching in a predominantly white school. There is very little diversity in the school that I will be working in. So if I do get hired in this district, in this school, one of the things I can do is to create a diverse learning environment with opportunities from different cultures in my classroom. I can also encourage students to accept one another in all ways and forms. I can foster a respectful environment in my classroom. And I can teach children about the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and incorporate community partnerships in my lessons. The second law I'm going to be talking about is the Elementary and Secondary Education Act. As I said before, I will be specifically focusing on Title I, part of the act, because my school is a Title I school that I will be working at. And I'm very interested to learn more about Title I and all that it entails. What is the ESEA? Well, Lyndon B. Johnson authorized this act in 1965 as part of the War on Poverty movement. The War on Poverty was an unofficial name for multiple legislations that Johnson passed in response to a national poverty rate in the United States of about 19%. The act emphasizes equal access to education by authorizing federally funded education programs that are administered individually by each state. It serves kindergarten through 12th grade. In 2002, ESEA was amended and reauthorized as what we know as No Child Left Behind. The goals of ESEA include implementing standards through each individual state to ensure that each child is learning and excelling at a proficient level, providing equal access education to all students regardless of socioeconomic status, and encouraging student and teacher accountability through testing and examinations. ESEA funds are mandated by the government, and they can be used for professional development, towards resources to support education programs, to promote parental involvement, and for instructional materials in the school. One specific component of ESEA is Title I. The following video will give you a better idea of what a Title I school is.
What is Title I? Title I comes from the Elementary and Secondary Education Act of 1965. It used to be known as No Child Left Behind. The purpose is that all children have a fair, equal, and significant opportunity for a high-quality education. How does a school become a Title I school? Through free and reduced lunch numbers. Scottsdale has two Title I models, targeted assistance and school-wide. Title I focuses on reading and math, uses research-based programs, increases parental involvement, and requires highly effective teachers and paraprofessionals. SUSD has 11 schools qualifying for the Title I services. One school, Mojave, is a target assistance school. The remainder are school-wide. All Title I schools write a Title I plan. The Title I plan is the guiding document for the school. The plan addresses a number of areas. The main goal is to improve student academic achievement. Programs Title I supports young Title I students through Title I pre-kindergarten. Supports before, during, and after school programs. Supports summer school programs. Supports families through collaboration with the Scottsdale Public Library. And finally, works to increase family involvement. As a walkaway thought, this is Death Valley, a pretty dry and barren place. In 2005, however, Death Valley was covered in flowers from the abundant rain. All it takes is the right conditions for growth. Title I provides the rain for students to grow.
Oro Grande Elementary School, the school where I will be completing my student teaching, is a Title I school. That means that Title I definitely will have an effect on my future teaching career. Through Title I funding, they have been able to implement a school-wide reading assistance program. They have purchased listening centers for their kindergarten through 5th grade classrooms. They purchased multiple test preparation and reading intervention materials. They are thankful for their Title I funding. The final policy I've chosen to research is Common Core. Common Core has been in the news and media a lot recently. I've heard it discussed by multiple teachers and school staff, but I was not very familiar with what it was. This assignment asks us to examine federal policies and acts that affect teaching, and I've recently heard that Common Core may become a federally mandated policy by the government. Arizona, where I'll be student teaching, has already adapted Common Core, so I saw this as a great opportunity to learn what it was and how it will affect my future teaching career. Let's examine what Common Core is. Common Core is sponsored by the National Governors Association and the Council of Chief State School Officers. It is a set of high-quality academic standards in math and reading/language arts. It's detailed goals of what a student should know or be able to do at the end of each grade, kindergarten through 12th grade. Common Core may sound similar to the ESEA, but the ESEA called for individually mandated standards by state. The original act was completely against a federal curriculum. Common Core is different in that it is a framework for all states to follow. One of the goals is to eliminate variations between states and produce a consistent learning goal for our country. There are arguments against Common Core. One of the arguments is that Common Core cannot be tailored for all of the diverse populations of our nation. People believe it's a one-size-fits-all learning platform. Another argument is that it's hard to implement in states because the Common Core standards are better than some former state standards and worse than others. And finally, standard-based education affects the way that we teach and learn. Teachers often teach to the test because of all the pressure that's put on the testing. That's similar to an argument against No Child Left Behind. How will Common Core affect me as a teacher? Well, as a future teacher, I know I'll be teaching in Arizona. Arizona has adopted these standards, so I will use them in my teaching. However, taking into consideration the pros and cons, I will still need to try to find ways to incorporate diversity, foster creativity, and encourage inquisitiveness. I don't want to teach to the test. I want to make sure that my students are getting the best education possible.